Hey, Thomas, thank you for being here.
Nice to be here, Marcus.
Nice. Congrats on the tour. You're excited?
I'm thrilled. Yeah, very excited to be going out on tour again.
You're going to be here in New York next month at the Racket NYC. What can we expect?
So I very often play solo, but on this particular tour, I've got some guest musicians with me of very high caliber, and we're going to be doing sort of new arrangements of songs you may know of, and I'm sort of interspersing that with some storytelling about recollections from the 1980s.
Nice, nice. And congrats on the perennial success of "She Blinded Me with Science."
Yeah, it's not many songs have that sort of perennial lifespan. So I'm very proud of that.
You were like 15 to 20 years ahead of your time.
Well, I mean that way, I don't consider myself a futurist. I like playing around with new technologies and new musical ideas and sort of idioms and things like that. So I'm always very attracted to stuff that is sort of unexplored and whether that be MTV videos or synthesizers and samplers and drum machines.
I love it. I was born in 85, but yeah, it was like I feel like it's the best musical era of the 80s. So yeah.
It was a very exciting era. It was a lot of different musical styles coming together from around the world, enabled by new technologies that sort of took the music business out of the hands of big record companies eventually and recording studios and the budgets that went along with them, and allowed people like me to go into our back rooms and experiment. And then I think also with the arrival of MTV, sort of broke the deadlock that radio had in terms of formulas and genres of music. And if a video was exciting, MTV would play it, and then the radio stations had to sort of follow that format. So it really opened things up musically.
Yeah, the song it doesn't get any more 80s than the sound that you brought, so that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean it's very interesting. I've been playing a lot recently with some of my contemporaries from the '80s, those that are still like not dead or in jail,
Nice.
that are out there still doing it. And I think, like me, we all feel the same thing, which is that it's an incredible honor, really, to still be up there getting paid to do the stuff that we love. And it's really heartening to see not just people of our own age, but also young people who are discovering 80s music and they're fascinated by it. And they're especially interested to sort of come and see us play live because we're the authentic,
Hey,
originals that started this movement out.
always say it's better to have a song that's longevity versus a number one that'll people forget the next week.
Yeah, I think it is. And it's so there's a club here in Baltimore that has like an 80s dance party, and people dress up and everything. And there's a lot of sort of, the more extreme styles and things from the 80s get revived. Obviously, there's a lot of goths there, dancing around to, Susie and The Cure and stuff like that.
Wow.
That we're aware of where goth or punk or electronic music evolved to in later years, but they may be discovered, those genres of music through more contemporary artists, but they've gone back to the original source to see where it all started out. So it's great when you see the dance floor there and it's filled with people from their 20s to their 50s and 60s.
Nice, nice. Good, good. And you have a David Bowie's bassist opening for you.
Yeah, so Gail Ann Dorsey was David's bassist for the last, I don't know, 10, 12 years of his life, and as an incredible alto singer and a wonderful bassist. And I'm lucky enough to have her with me, not only opening for me as herself, Gail Ann Dorsey. She has, records of her own out, but she'll also be guesting with my band and sharing some of the lead vocals, which is very exciting.
And it's a full band this time, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't often do that. Economically, it's kind of hard to do these days. Playing clubs and theaters to go out with a full band and a tour bus and a trailer and stuff. But I really want to do it for this show because I'm building up to a big project that'll probably kick off at the end of the year or early
Nice.
next year,
That's cool.
which actually involves playing with a symphony, with a full band in front of a symphony. And so I'm sort of working out some of the kinks in the material there. And I don't want to say too much about it. People have to come and see
Next
it to see
interview. Next interview.
exactly.
Nice, nice. Good stuff. Good stuff. And how does it feel to be an artist in the digital age now?
Well, I mean, a lot of people are sort of glass half empty types. They're scared of streaming audio, they're scared of AI and things like that. I've always been on the positive side. I always see emerging technologies as an opportunity for new forms of creativity. And I think that art, music, they have to keep evolving, they have to keep rolling forward. And you can't it's fine to be nostalgic about previous eras, but you can't be a Luddite, put the brakes on and say, no, this is wrong. We've got to revert to the way things were. You can't stop the march of progress. And so I would rather be one of the pioneers that is out there at each point,
Right.
showing the world what is possible with new technologies. So I think this is an exciting era to be an artist. It's very, very different from when I started out. A handful of us sort of broke through the glass ceiling, got signed to record labels and got on the radio and so on. Now it's very, very easy to get a foothold, to get your stuff out there. But the problem is you're competing with 100,000 other guys that have the same
Right.
access. So it's a different kind of playing field from when I started out for sure.
Nice, nice. And what do you feel is the key to longevity in the music industry all these decades?
What I feel is the
Key to longevity.
key to longevity. I think sort of not following formulas. The music industry found me frustrating because I didn't follow formulas. They would have liked it after She Blinded Me with Science if I'd sort of, churned out a bunch more cookie cutter, hit singles but I was always too attracted to something new and different. So it's like right after She Blinded Me with Science, I got more organic with, my more sort of intimate, more atmospheric stuff. And a lot of people wouldn't have discovered that if it hadn't been for the commercial success I had with She Blinded Me with Science and then Hyperactive and so on. But I mean, I think my long-term fans are into the deeper cuts. They're into songs like Screen Kiss, Airwaves, Budapest by Blimp, I Love You Goodbye, which are,
Whole
very,
album is great.
a lot more moody, a lot more atmospheric than the stuff they've probably heard on the radio.
I love it. So good. I love how every song on there has its own identity.
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked the way a novelist could sort of write every book with a different era, a different cast of characters, a different geographic location. And I think in the music industry, the corporations encourage you to like keep very focused on your brand and not go off brand, not go off topic. But I mean, going off topic is my favorite thing in the world to do. So I think that people that have followed my music over the decades, they know to roll with the punches. They know that there'll be a surprise, and it may be a style, an idiom of music that they're not even familiar with.
What's your advice for young and emerging artists and bands? What would you tell them?
Well, I mean, it's really tricky, because of the competition. I mean, these days you've got to be a marketer, you've got to know a bit about business, because you're not going to have a team of people at the record company doing that for you. You've got to be the one blowing your own trumpet. And I think that's uncomfortable for a lot of artists because we don't really like to be blowing our own trumpet and bigging ourselves up in that way. We'd rather somebody else is on the phone every morning, like, singing our praises and getting us out there. But these days you have to be self-serving really. And I think that's the tricky thing is how to balance art and commerce.
Mhm. Nice. And you're also a college professor, I believe.
I am, yeah. So I teach film music at Johns Hopkins University, which has a conservatory called the Peabody Conservatory, which is actually the oldest in the USA, from like close to 150 years old now. And that is an incredible place. Lots of very, very talented musicians that have been playing their instruments since they were, toddlers. And I'm very honored to be, in the faculty there alongside people with PhDs in music. And, I left school at 16 to go work in a fruit and veg shop. And I'm sort of amazed to be allowed to, walk the same corridors as those guys. But I mean, I think to be fair, I think the students realize that I bring them something else that they don't get from their sort of, theory professors and things. And that is, school of life, really. I
Right.
learned by trial and error. Very often I had very scant resources to work with. I didn't have thousands of tracks, endless hard drive space, etc. I had to do something good with some very basic building blocks. So that's what I try and teach them is how to make the best of what you have, the card that you're dealt, and how to find your own voice as a composer, as a musician.
Nice, nice. And which artist would you like to someday do a dream collab with?
Well, I've had an interesting couple of months making friends with the Billie Eilish camp, and it turns out that she and Phineas, when they were kids, their dad used to spoon feed them Thomas Dolby on the cassette, in the car, like, and they went on camping trips.
Vinyl, vinyl, vinyl.
And so there's this amazing podcast that her dad Patrick did, where yeah, Patrick and Billy are talking about my music, and she's singing along with Evil Twin Brother and all these songs. Just go, it's so good, man. It's so weird, but it's so good. And it's like when I hear her singing along with my songs, it's like, well, a dream collaboration would be to do something with Billy.
That's easy. Seems that, yeah, that'll be cool. But yeah, just love the vinyl, like the warmth and nostalgia and the scratchiness to it.
And that clunk when you drop the
Yeah.
needle on it, it's just like,
Or when you put a dime on the needle for it to stick.
exactly.
Good times, good time. I miss those days. Because we used to have like vinyl listening parties to invite people over and have like a musical shared experience.
My problem is that my son, who's a bit of a DJ turntablist, has scratched the heck out of all of my vinyl collection, so it's mostly unplayable now.
Mine too, but that means that it served its purpose. So yeah, it did it served its overall effect. So yeah. And what's the title of the current chapter of your life?
The next frontier, really. At working at a conservatory, I hear the orchestra tuning up and practicing. And, these are people who have devoted their lives to their instrument, and they're playing an instrument that has centuries of legacy in the craftsmanship. They're playing music that has been fine-tuned, over the years. And when they're really on, sometimes I go and sit in the back of the hall when they're rehearsing, and when they're really on it, it's sort of like watching a school of fish or a flock of birds moving. You
Sure,
don't
for
hear the
sure.
individual choices. You just see this incredible cluster, and that's something you can't do with machines. Because if I program like a kick drum sound and then a snare drum sound and then a bass sound, they're great sounds, but they don't listen to each other. They don't talk to each other. So they don't really resonate in that way. They just do what they're told. So I'm amazed when I sit there and I go, oh, I could never program this stuff, because everybody is so in tune with their brain to their fingertips, to the open strings and the open piano lid and the timpanis ringing and the sound from under the stage. And when it all comes together, it's just an amazing thing. So my ambition at this point is to compose for a symphony.
Be cool. That'll be cool. Nice, nice. And what does success mean to you? My favorite question.
Well, never having to worry about the repo man coming to take away your big screen TV, really, I suppose. I'm not spendy, I'm not wealthy in that sense. And so I feel very successful because my artistic choices are not influenced by needing to pay the rent every month. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And feel bad for people who are great artists, but for whom, just making that rent payment every month is still an issue, and it is very hard these days to make a living. Recorded music is not profitable now, so it's really a case of whether you can make money out on the road, and that's not even possible for everybody to do. So I think that I consider myself successful because I'm able to make choices sort of based on expressing myself, on
Right.
exploring music, finding a new way to entertain my fans, expanding my audience, finding a way to interest younger crowds, in my music, so they can get into it, and people will still be alive in a few more decades, so I can keep making music.
Nice. And what would you like to say to your fans and supporters that have been with you on your journey? It takes a village.
What do I have to say to them?
Yeah.
Oh, come down. Yeah, no, I mean, I think, as you get older, it gets harder and harder to get out to shows. You've got, kids, dogs, mortgages, roof repairs to worry about. But I think it's a worthwhile thing to come down to my shows because this is music that you probably loved when you were younger. Who knows how long there'll still be an opportunity to see me out there playing it, while I'm still, thankfully fit and healthy to do so. It's like, when you come to one of my shows, it's like sort of having communion with, not to make a religious reference, but it's like locking into the stuff that you loved when you were younger. But bring your kids, bring your younger friends, your neighbors, bring people to get into my music that want to hear some different kind of 80s music from maybe what you hear in the sort of in the rewind, retro type shows.
And what's the one thing you want him to get out of the tour dates in the US?
Oh, a new perspective on that era.
Right.
I think, the 80s were actually very dark. I think when people do like an 80s retro thing, often it's leg warmers and girls just want to have fun and walking on sunshine and all that sort of really extroverted sort of party stuff. But actually, if you lived through it, I mean, you were too young, but if you lived through, the miners' strike, Margaret Thatcher, the Cold War, the Falklands crisis, Ronald Reagan, big corporation, all of that stuff. It was quite a dark decade. Now, admittedly, by today's standards, it seems fairly mellow, it seems fairly innocent. But if you were there, it was very dark. And I think that darkness is reflected in the music of, the Smiths, The Cure, Susie and the Banshees, a lot of my contemporaries from the UK. And that's something that I want to lean into a little bit. Not as a sort of, funereal dirge, really, but in order to exercise some of those ghosts.
Nice, nice. I hope to see you someday in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Well, who knows?
For you and a Howard Jones, just for the fact that you pushed the envelope with the new wave genre, which doesn't get the credit that it deserves.
Well, I mean, I'm very happy with my lot in life, and there's very few people I would swap places with. So, but thank you for the suggestion.
Always, always.